One of the things that I feel like has enabled us to do projects like this is making some strategic gear purchases that allow us to have a lot of the gear that we would need in-house to produce something like this. So, we shot this on a Red Raven, so the very cheapest DSMC2 body out there. We made that purchase. We co-own the camera package. We made that purchase 2-3 years ago at a point where we knew that we had enough client work coming up that was going to want a Red. They didn't care what Red it was, as long as it was Red Raw, and they just wanted a Red on set so they could post on social media that they were shooting on Red. But anyway, we made that purchase then, knowing that we had the work coming up to justify that financial decision. Treated it like an investment. That camera package has made us back its full cost and then some. We've made very, very good money off of that purchase, just from an investment perspective. And then taking the same approach to all the other gear that we're purchasing. Is this something that we can bill out? Is it something that is going to make our jobs easier? And is this, there's a lot of cool gear I would love to purchase. We've tried to avoid purchasing gear that depreciates quickly and purchasing gear that we know is going to make us money and allow us to do the kind of work that we want to do. So owning a solid lens kit, which those lenses aren't depreciating. I wish I'd bought more of them back when I did. The camera package, and then a basic, we could go crazy and keep buying more lights. We could buy a Mophie, we could do all that. But we realized we shoot most of our stuff handheld, so we don't really the Mophie aesthetic wouldn't really help us. And then that frees us up to not worry about running wireless video, wireless fellow focus. We've done that plenty on other projects, but for this project, it didn't make sense to try and do. So I'm just looking over his shoulder on the camera. He's pulling his own focus. We're using the lights that we have. Went out and got a mosquito fogger and a bunch of mineral oil and hazed the place up, and trying to approach gear from that perspective. And it's a mix of making strategic gear purchases and then making do with what we've got access to.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I think that's a really important point, because a lot of people feel like there's a lot of pressure to buy gear and do these kinds of things. I feel like a lot of times, especially for social media is great with that, but so much of the time just realizing renting is such a great option, but then B, you can do a lot with a little with what you have. You guys have a decent amount of gear, but you have it for a specific reason. It's not just buy it. And there's so many options for cheaper alternatives than Reds or those kind of things, because sometimes those aren't even the best option, right? Because that's super bad in low light unless you have the Gemini or something. But
most of the work that I shoot happens on a C200 now. I've got the Red, but it's not like I'm pulling it out for most of the projects, simply because it's not the camera for most of the projects. Or even, SLR or my old C100 Mark I still gets a ton of work. And I picked that camera up for $700 off of B&H used, and it's made me more than that back many times over. Two other really quick thoughts about gear. I think you want to make sure that you're spending money on things that you really need and that really improve the quality of your work. Up until this past year, I didn't. Neither of us owned a follow focus. Neither of us still own a matte box. We're shooting off the Red monitor. We're not getting a crazy fancy monitor out. My C-stands, I've been told, are the oldest working C-stands in St. Louis. They're made by a company that doesn't even exist anymore. But I was just watching eBay or I think this is eBay, and just finding they're not the really cheap modern ones. They're really solidly built. They're just from the 1950s. And just buying that kind of gear that doesn't necessarily look cool. Nobody ever looks at my lighting package and goes, "Wow, that looks really cool," but it works and it gets the job done. And the same with our camera kit. So nobody's taking behind the scenes pictures of our Red build because it does not look cool. It's a couple cheap small rig components, the Red body, and the camera. But we're not throwing a matte box on, we're not throwing a follow focus on, we're not getting carried away with all that stuff because it didn't make our job easier or make us money. And that's a huge part of I think we really easily get caught up in, this looks cool, I want to buy this gear, and I'm totally guilty of that too. But if it's not actually making the project work better, making us money, we don't need to go that route.